forget our names, we also have them up here as well. You want to just jump right in?
Sure, I
Well,
will.
first let's appreciate the artwork Jamie drew.
I have an MFA, so
So fabulous.
thanks. So we started Practice Best Practice last year, and we are happy to welcome the Parks in as a partner, as well as New Bedford Creative as a new partner. The other partners are NBAM, SNG Project Gallery and Brokerage, and the Co-Creative Center. So yeah, so that's Practice Best Practice. If you want to know about more stuff that we're gonna do, just sign up on that mailing list and we will reach out. Let's do this.
Awesome.
Okay. So we're gonna,
We've got an agenda that we'll just kind of take a peek at. Well, maybe not.
that was fun.
It was.
Yeah, I can be your Vanna.
There it is.
Yes.
Okay. The main objective of this workshop is to provide local artists with the tools and skills to properly apply and successfully obtain an artist residency. So we will try to do that here pretty quickly in an hour and a half. And we're going to use the National Park Services residency here at New Bedford Whaling as a case study. So we actually have an open call right now. It closes March 1st. And that's for our residency for April, May, and June of this year. So if you're interested in applying to that, all you would do was go to publicartist.org. And that main screen is going to look like this when you pull it up. Any of the open calls that are live right now are right here. You can see New Bedford Whaling National Historical Park. You would just click on that. How many of you know who this is?
What is
Fitz.
it?
Okay, Fitz is like our amazing poster child of the artist residency. I love to brag on Fitz all of the time. Yeah, we'll put a big heart on Fitz. We love Fitz. Fitz was one of our first artists in residence in early 2018. And he started with this nugget of starting a graphic novel. And he wanted the graphic novel set in New Bedford. And so he started to draw, started to make schematics, started to do the initial paintings. And then he did a fellowship after he did the residency. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between a residency and a fellowship. But basically, during the residency, he had this idea for a graphic novel, and he released the prologue on November 14th, 2019, and we gave away the first 50 copies for free in this space. So Fitz will often kind of refer to as like an amazing person who's kind of graduated out of this residency program and gone on to make some really amazing things for the community. And basically, we've funded that entire project. So if that's something you would like to do, we want you to apply, and that's why we're all here now.
So you know those workout videos where the main workout person is in the front doing their thing, and then there's like Linda in the back corner who's kind of like.
Sorry to anyone who might be named Linda.
Yeah. So Linda's in the back corner, sort of doing like the half stretches and asking the dummy questions. I'm Linda today. So as we go through the Park Service Artist Residency Program, you know, I'm gonna be like the gateway drug to asking all the dumb questions. So you guys, you are also welcome to jump on board with me too. And then one of the reasons why I'm here is to do breakout groups and talk about artist statements, because I read so many artist statements and I have so many opinions about them. I wanna like make sure that everyone in the New Bedford community are writing artist statements that truly, truly exemplify the work that they're making, and that aren't just like total, woo, you know. Was that almost a hand?
It was almost a hand.
Okay. Linda too, Candido. Yeah.
So the term artist,
Yes.
right? Because there always seems to be, sometimes there's a contention between what artists means. So because I am a performer and I can't even paint a stick figure.
Sure.
Can you sort of just, define what artists means in this context?
Great question. That was, well, I was gonna ask a question while Lindsay was introducing the program of like, wait a second, do I have to be a painter to apply?
No.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so my view of like who this could be available to is quite liberal, quite loose. I really would be jazzed if I saw a musician apply or a performance artist apply. Also, we've had applications from historians who want to create like photographic anthologies who would never consider themselves artists but want to see a project realized. So we call it an artist in residence program because that's our main kind of bread and butter who we want to serve with this program. But really it's open and available to anyone who wants to realize a creative project. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there might be some folks we couldn't accept, like a welder may not work well in this space, right? But certainly within reason, there are a lot of different types of mediums and types of artists and creative folks and folks who just want to make really cool things, whether it's like a physical, tangible thing or a moment in time. Like, we accept applications from all people. Like, we're not going to turn you away if you're not a capital A artist.
Let's dive into the application, and we can talk more about this idea of
Yeah.
who does get turned away and
Sure.
why.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through this residency as if we are applying. And for those of you who walked in late, I may or may not refer to myself as Linda, even though that's not my name, but you'll catch on. So I'm Linda, the artist. Lindsay's going to be Lindsay, the Lindsay, and we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
Okay. So you pull up to the page in your car, and you read the summary. Now, when I've sat on the panel who selects the residencies, I think 2 or 3 times now, and there's a couple of things that, and I've sat on other panels before too. There's a couple of like do's and don'ts, and there's a couple of don'ts that will just get your beautiful application just tossed in the trash. Do we want to talk about those don'ts first? Let's do it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how to read for context, read for what the national parks, in this case, are looking for. And then we're going to think about if our art practice actually applies to that, or if we're stretching our own practice to try to fit in with something that might not fit. Okay? So, first things first. I do not read out loud, so I'm going to
Do you want me to read
it. Please.
Yeah. Okay, so under call summary, can you guys all read this or see it at least?
I feel like
Can you make it a little bit
barely
bigger?
see it.
Yeah.
I have old eyes, sorry.
Is that better?
Well, Lindsay's going to be the reader.
Okay,
That's cool.
so the National Park Service, and this will be great too to find errors.
Yeah.
The National Park Service at New Bedford Whaling National Historical Park seeks innovative artists from across disciplines to participate in our residency program. Artists in the program will be challenged to look at New Bedford as a source of inspiration for their work. Exploratory possibilities include, but are not limited to, heritage, ecology, identity, and community. The residency will immerse participants in different modalities of site-specific creation with civic engagement at its core. The highest consideration will be given to artists that engage with the following prompt. New Bedford Whaling National Historical Park seeks submissions from New England-based artists interested in exploring topics connected to women's rights or work inspired by the untold stories of women in the United States.
Linda has a question.
Yeah. Go
Does
ahead,
that
Linda.
prompt ever change? Is it always about the ladies? Okay. No.
It's not always about the ladies.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was specifically for 2020. 2020 is the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which allowed some women in the United States
Why'd
the
you say
right to
that?
vote. So we want to talk about that. 2020 is a major year for women's rights, and we want to talk about all of the facets of what it means to be a woman in New Bedford. And that could be like you talking about yourself being a woman in New Bedford, or you talking about the historical women of New Bedford, or making some kind of connection in that way. I can't imagine all of the ways we can connect women's stories to New Bedford, but that's why you all are here with your amazing creative brains to do so.
So the gorilla in the room is this skewed towards women because
Absolutely not.
Men presenting this about women, that's still valid.
Yes.
Well, and I wouldn't say anything is valid or not valid. It depends on the proposal. It's how you communicate how you want to realize your work and how you communicate that out. Because if you are a son, right, and you want to talk about your mother, who's maybe a historical woman of New Bedford, like, who am I to say you're not right to tell that story? This is not to base our decision based on the applicant's gender. This is to highlight stories of women in New Bedford, and whatever way that means.
Yeah, and like also like the patriarchy like affects everyone, right? So men are affected by sexism and women being sort of pushed down historically as well. So, I mean, apply regardless of your gender.
Also, 2021 may have a completely different prompt. It may have no prompt at all. This is just something I wanted to pursue for 2020, and I was given the liberty to do so, and so I'm doing it.
Go girl.
Yeah.
Good question though, Ron. That's a good
But
one.
yeah.
Ron is not a Linda. That was a good question.
Yeah, no, not a Linda.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, Rhonda?
So Rhonda has something to say.
Yeah, please.
I think it's really important for men to apply to this because the perspective of men growing up in, well, having the privilege to do everything that they may have wanted, maybe to having a mother or a sister or a daughter or a grandchild, and they see the struggle. I think it's interesting to gain some of that perspective. I just had to say that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I addressed it as,
Yeah.
the gorilla in the room, because, there aren't that many guys here. And probably the first thing that popped in their heads like, ew, how am I gonna,
Am I
how would
allowed
I
to
approach
touch
this
this?
thing? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I would say if your first response is ew, maybe this call isn't for you.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I got something
Yeah.
already figured out, but I didn't know
Yeah.
if I could go, all right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think something we want to highlight today is like every call you read is maybe not for you, right? And that's part of what we're trying to instill in you today is like, you may read the call and go like, gosh, this sounds like such a cool opportunity, but my work really doesn't fit in with this specific prompt. But maybe in early 2021, when we're making the calls for that year, maybe that prompt will really resonate with you. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, let's keep pushing forward.
We believe that art should be accessible to all people, and that it is the artist's role to act as a catalyst for both inspiration and radical inclusion. As such, artists will be expected to offer a series of public workshops, talks, or demonstrations while participating in our program. Possibilities range from children's craft days to meet and greets over coffee to Q&A sessions. Park personnel are available to help artists brainstorm, facilitate, and implement outreach and program ideas. These events should occur on AHA nights. We have a link there for AHA New Bedford. Weekends or school vacation days, all events will be free and open to the public.
So something I want to talk about is reading for context. When you're applying for anything, you want to know who you're applying to. And the number one move that we saw on many applications this round, I shouldn't say many, we saw a handful on the applications this round, was not quite understanding who they were applying to. The Whaling, this is not the same thing as the Whaling Museum. And so that's sort of like know your audience number one, right? And I know that sounds like a total bonehead thing, but it happens all the time. It's like people get excited about the history of whaling and they're like, I want to dig into the Whaling, museum's collection. And it's like, well, okay, but we don't have that collection. And by we, I mean Lindsay. I keep breaking the machine.
Green X.
You guys are special.
I got you covered. Yeah, and just to talk about that a little bit more, there there were many times in this last panel. So I bring together 3 people to be on the panel, and typically there are alums of the Artist in Residence program from this park and local professionals who are artists themselves. So I brought Jamie, former Artist in Residence Dan Borelli, and because Fitz actually had a last minute thing come up, Julia, our amazing year-long intern whom you all shall meet, that is shared between Jamie and I, actually subbed in for Fitz on that panel. So when we're looking at applications, and we have 2 really strong applications, like artistic merit, like the amazing photographs or amazing paintings or sculptures or whatever we're looking at, and one person calls us by our name, and one person calls us by the Whaling Museum's name.
And I guess
if you don't know who we are, and I understand there is an identity crisis in New Bedford, that like it's not terribly easy to understand the difference unless you're down here and someone's telling you what the difference is. But if you follow the link from this application to the organization's website to which you're applying, it says our name at the top. So that tells me that you, A, didn't click the link to our website to figure out who we are, or B, you just don't care. So it may seem like something that's not very important, but to us, it's very important that you know who we are.
So some other things that are important. I just want to write on the magic whiteboard, so you'll have to excuse me.
Please keep doing it.
Yeah, so this and this. If I was reading this,
So that's specific, site-specific creation, if you can't read it, and civic engagement.
this is where, as an artist, if I'm reading this, I have to start asking myself some questions like, okay, can I make my work in this space? Because that's what they're asking for. If I can't, let's say I am a welder, like, what part of my practice can I do here? And then the other thing is civic engagement. What if you're like, well, shit, I don't want to talk to people ever, which is a thing. Like, you know, like, again, this residency might not be for you because this residency, unlike some other ones, has some deliverables. Love that word. And you actually need to do things and engage the public. Now, if you're like a social practice person that's like, engaging public is my jam, then this would be great for you. If you're a painter who paints beautiful portraits of women in New Bedford and are willing to talk to people about it, this residency will work well for you, and that's who we have currently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just some key points to point out.
Yeah, and that's a civic engagement, and this site is why this national park exists. So that's why that component is embedded in it. So we are the National Park Service. We are a public-facing organization. Our mission statement literally says that we need to serve the American population. And that's where that public component comes in. It's like, we can't just pay you to make your work in isolation. There has to be some type of public benefit.
Linda's got a question.
Yeah.
Are there other residencies you could tell me about where I can work in isolation because I don't want to talk to people?
Absolutely, and that's why we have a resource list at the end of this document that we will email out to everyone. It's like, if you read our prompt and you're like, man, this sounds awesome, but for someone else, I'm gonna go look elsewhere for residencies. We have some links for those resources, because there are a lot of resources out there that tell you about, you know, this residency is 4 weeks long and is in Finland, and you know, you go there and you hole up in the woods and you don't talk to anyone.
I've done that residency, there's a lot of drinking.
Or you want to work in a national park where you may be encountering like, you know, intergenerational families who are coming by your studio, and there's little kids in your studio space, and there's, you know, 6 to 10 people who are like, hey, what are you doing? We don't know anything about art. Tell us about what you're doing. Like, that's the folks who come through. So that's why it's important to us.
Okay, so reading for context clues. We got an idea what I'm talking about there, about knowing your audience, okay? Another thing about if you're applying to this, knowing your audience is they're into accessibility here. And also, I mean, I think we're lucky enough to have Lindsay, who does have an arts background, but if you're applying for a residency at a national park as opposed to like an art institute, you need to figure out how to tweak your writing just a little bit so you're writing to a general population. You should do that anyway. Like, not all of us like went to Brown and like can read millions of pieces of paper and like love big words. Brown, I don't know why I use Brown as an example. Sorry. We'll use Harvard. But currently enrolled in Harvard, thanks. You know, and we'll go, when we do our artist statement talk, we'll talk more about that, about eliminating art speak. Because when I was on this last panel, you know, I'm like a curator. I should be able to speak art speak. I was reading some of these things, and I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? And we'll go through that, and we have some great examples of bad artist statements. Okay, let's keep going. We're gonna come back to budget in the perks section. Okay, project description.
Yeah, can you read every or can you sing?
No.
So our program is distinguished by the distinctive opportunities we offer participants. A $2,500 stipend, both studio and exhibition space, personalized professional development, promotional support, and material fee waivers. Applications are competitive, and only one resident will be selected per session. In the application, artists should be sure to outline the scope of their prior work, the role of the residency program in further developing their work, how New Bedford will serve as a source of inspiration, and their plan for public engagement. Strongest consideration, do you want me to stop?
No, I'm just, yeah. Linda's got a question.
Go ahead.
I don't know, it looks like you just laid out an outline for my application in that. Oh, that wasn't a question.
Fancy that.
Yeah, okay, sorry, go on.
We are trying to make it easy. We're not trying to trick anyone. We are trying to put it all out there because we want successful applications. We want people to come here and do amazing things and realize work that they haven't been able to realize before. Like, at no point are we trying to like pull a fast one on anybody. That's why this is so hopefully clear.
So context clues. If you're like, how do I write this? This description is giving you points of departure to write about. Okay, sorry.
Strongest consideration will be given to artists who engage with all of the components of our residency program. We especially encourage graduate and professional artists living in New Bedford to apply.
Linda's got another question. I'm like super good at drawing. I'm basically the Chuck Close
I'm sure you are.
Of New Bedford. So I'm guessing artistic merit is like the main thing you're going off of. Would you say that's true?
No.
Oh gosh.
That's not true at all.
Yeah.
So artistic merit is obviously a component of the application process. However, artistic merit alone is not going to get you a residency. You need to clearly communicate your vision and how you plan to engage with people. And if I can't see something when I'm reading, like if I can't imagine something, even if it's not what you're imagining, if I can't imagine anything, like what does this look like? It's probably not gonna go very far, even if you are the Chuck Close of New Bedford. So yes, artistic merit is important, however, it is not the most valuable piece in this application.
Cool.
So then we list out available equipment and
Yeah.
5
Just so
ukuleles.
everyone knows.
Please start a ukulele band, someone. Like, we just want it. We just really, really want it. And this is really just to show people that we have some equipment here already available to use, and if any of these pieces of equipment resonate with you and potentially enhance the work that you want to do, that's why we have this here. We've had folks in the space who have asked us to purchase some of this equipment. We've also purchased some of this equipment because we think it's really cool and we want someone to use it. So the equipment that's in here is not doing any of us any good if it's just collecting dust. So my hope and vision for sharing this info is like someone would see the 5 ukuleles and start a ukulele band. Or, you know, maybe someone is really interested in getting into video artwork. Or, you know, they really want to use one of our cameras to make a specific thing. Maybe they don't have an 8,000 lumen projector available to them in their everyday life, and they see that we have this projector on here, and then that sparks something within that person to, you know, gain inspiration from.
So this is great. This is like about access. Like not all of us can afford a projector.
Right.
Speaking from the museum's point of view. Okay, so.
Yeah, also the smart board is on there because as you can see,
I
you
love
can
this
make beautiful artwork of crying people.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Let's go up to the requirements.
Yeah. How are we on time? Okay, it's 5 o'clock. We're doing great.
Yes. Tell us about the requirements.
Yeah, so we require a 1-page resume. That can be, you know, you've worked at wherever you've worked and you volunteered at wherever you volunteered. We just want to know that you're a real human person and that you've done things. I don't care if you've gone to an Ivy League or not. You know, that we're not basing our decision on your resume, but we want to know that you've done some things. And we also want to know people that we can call upon to vouch that you've done some things.
Yeah, and there's a couple different kinds of like resumes and artist resumes and whatnot in the like visual artist world. And in the performing artist world. And if you ever want some feedback on like what to put on your artist resume versus what to put on like I'm applying for a job at Starbucks resume, they are different. And then there's a key component here. It's this 1-page max. Some of us in this room have done way more stuff than 1 page, like for real. But basically you wanna put up your best shows or best performances. If you've never had a show, that's okay, you can still apply for this program.
Mm-hmm.
Usually education is on there. And we also just know when you're prepping when you're moving stuff around for your resume for this program, something that I would do if Linda was really applying, is I'd be like, okay, they're into civic engagement. Linda was a teacher. Now Linda speaks in the third person. Oh my God, it's just spiraling out of control. Linda was a teacher for 10 years. Like that might help you out in this situation, right?
Yeah.
If I was applying to Skowhegan or something, I might not add the teacher thing. I might add more shows. So we can tweak that, and we can help each other with that.
Yeah, we want 3 to 5 works examples, so photos of your work, or samples of video, or samples of songs, or what?
For the resume,
Yeah.
you're saying you'd like places you can call. So when you're putting this together, are you like, should we put links? Or just a rough like name of a show? I never know how much detail to go into on these.
Sure, yeah. I would say no links. And we ask for 1 reference, so that's really the only person we're gonna call. But like, if I know, like let's say you put that you've showed at the New Bedford Art Museum on there, I'm gonna call Jamie, because I know Jamie.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go, hey, you worked with Justin. Can you tell me what it was like? So it's not necessarily that I'm gonna go and dig in and call each person. It's just, I wanna see like what you've done. We wanna see what you've done, a little bit about your experience. And as you guys probably know, if you see an organization on somebody's resume and you know somebody in that organization, you're gonna call and ask, hey, what was it like to work with this person? Because I guarantee you no one's gonna put like a mediocre reference as their 1 reference, right? You're not gonna put someone who's like kind of iffy on you for that 1 reference, right? And we're not like digging deep and trying to do like these intense background checks or anything like that, but we wanna know that you are who you say you are, that you've done what you say you've done, right? That's the main thing.
Cool.
Just really nitpicking about the resume. 1 page, 1 side, 1 page, 2 sides.
1 page means 1 page.
Okay.
2 sides means 2 pages.
Okay, that's
Right,
what I
yeah.
wanted to-
So I just want to talk really quickly about the work examples. Something I love about this application is that you don't have to load like 20 examples of your work. And if you, is there room for people to upload like recordings too? If they're, okay. So my suggestion for work samples, and you might have heard this before, but let's say you're gonna put out 5 samples. Your sample number 1 needs to be your best image or your best song, your best thing. Best can mean a lot of things, but you want something that's gonna catch people's eye for that first one and want them to look at the next couple images. You also want your last image to be hecka good as well, or your last video or whatever you're showing. And that's because, you know, you wanna leave us with wanting more. So the first one, the last one, image-wise, are the most important. Also, like, I believe that the specs for your images come up on this.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you how many applications I looked at where I'm like, okay, this image looks cool, and I click on the thumbnail, and the thumbnail is just the size of the image. And if I can't see the image, then, you know, then all that work you put into the application is just gonna be put aside, because I can't tell what we're looking at. So, anyway, so first and last, make them great. In between, make those great too, but.
Yeah, and we had a writer apply for the last residency, so that's where all of this kind of funky literary sample stuff comes in. The person specifically wasn't allowed to submit anything other than like a JPEG, and they couldn't submit JPEGs of literary samples. So that's where these come in. There.
I see. That's why it says optional.
Mhm.
Got it.
Yeah.
Quick question, what if your best work examples are dramatically different than what you're proposing?
That's okay.
I think it's
Yeah, as long as it's pretty well articulated your vision for what you want to do, and like speak to that. I think saying like, my work has been X, and I want it to be Y, and through this residency is how I'm going to do that.
Got it.
Right? Like we just want to see that there's potential there. So the current artist in residence that we have is April Jakubic. She's actually based in Somerville. She submitted an application. She has maybe 2 very small shows on her resume. She's not actually like a capital A artist in her everyday life. Like she's a mental health professional. She's working on a PhD in inclusivity and mental health studies. And so her work is about painting women of New Bedford. She wanted to use women of New Bedford who live with mental health struggles as their muses. Bless you. Her work has all been like 18 by 24, 24 by 36, and her submission said she wanted to make 60 by 48 portraits. So she didn't have any examples of work that big. She only submitted examples of smaller works. But she was able to articulate her vision and what she wanted out of this residency, and that's how she got selected. Yeah, so it's not necessarily apples to apples. You don't have to have all these like crazy good, amazing shows in order to get the residency. We want to give particularly folks who haven't had opportunities chances to get residencies and chances to be involved in these ways. Yeah.
One of the catch-22s that artists are in is the images, not having the really good equipment to take that amazing image, and a lot of people take images on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's something I run into.
Mm-hmm.
It's an issue.
Yeah, and that's and that's something that I think best practice is thinking about too, like what can we do, what can we offer? Right now, we don't have anything. But it's, I dream a dream of one day just like a list of equipment that's like the cheapest place to buy, or like, maybe there's a day at the art museum where we bring people in, you bring your work and we document it. Like, we're open to suggestions too. So there is a evaluation, like if you or anyone has like any ideas of how best practice could actually be more helpful to the actual artist, that's a great example.
That is a really good example, because that ties into not having that great image to
Yeah.
submit to.
Mhm.
people
Yeah.
who are looking at your images.
Yeah.
So that, I think, would be, a priority when you're teaching something like this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, we have the equipment to support something like that too, so, I would encourage folks who don't have that equipment to reach out to me individually and just ask, can I use your equipment to document my work?
Cha-ching. That's awesome.
Heck yeah, you can,
Problem solved.
yeah.
Look at us. Look at us go. Selection information, timeline. Any?
So yeah, this just lists out, so like the closing for this specific call is on March 1st. Selections will be made on March 11th, that's when I'm bringing the crew together to make the decision. And then I'll contact everybody by March 16th. That's just so you know what the timeline is for when you should hear back about whether or not you've been selected. Linda, go
Thanks. If I get rejected, are you gonna tell me or just leave me hanging forever?
I'm absolutely gonna tell you.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, we email everyone. We don't just like ghost you, so don't worry about that. And another thing is if you get rejected, please keep applying. Like, you may have been the second candidate in line, and if the first person was like, oh shoot, something came up, I'm not available, you may have gotten that, right? So keep applying, and I would say don't stop applying until you get stuff.
In general.
Also too, I don't give individual feedback unless asked. So if you get rejected, I'm gonna send you a generic rejection email. But if you reply to that email and ask me questions about why you weren't selected, I will give you that feedback if you want it. But I'm not just gonna give it freely unless you ask. And I would say that's probably true of most organizations.
Yeah.
As painful as that is, I highly recommend you ask why, because it just helps your writing process.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cause what if you were one of the applicants that had an amazing application, but you applied to the New Bedford Whaling Museum? Like,
Yeah, I would
um,
tell you.
okay. Contact. Do you want to go through this thing?
Yeah.
Sample.
So part of some of the paperwork that we asked you to pick up on that main table, and if you haven't, please head over there and grab one of each of those 8.5 by 11s. There's a sample of a letter of intent, or letter of interest, because that's one of the components that we ask for in the application. And basically what we'd like you to do right now is read through that. Take a couple minutes to read through that. And then at your like little cluster tables, talk about what you think's good, and what you think's bad, and what you think sticks out to you. We're gonna do that for about 5 minutes, and then we'll share out the things that we've discovered about. This is just a sample. This is not an actual letter of interest that we received. This is beautifully crafted by Julia. Specifically for this workshop. So all of the examples we're using today are not anyone's real things that they sent in, so don't worry about that. Did you have a question?
We're reading the letter right
The
now? Or
yeah,
statement?
the letter of
Okay,
interest.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
We're gonna
Yeah.
read too. I wanna mark this up.
Yeah. So take about a couple minutes to read through that, and then share out with the people around you what you think about it.
So, Fitz obviously didn't stick to a whaling quote-unquote theme. That's
Yeah.
as far from that as possible.
Right.
Other
Which is part
than
of why we love
the location of his graphic novel being set in New Bedford, that was pretty much it.
All the characters in that graphic novel were people of New Bedford.
Okay.
Yeah, so there were things embedded, yeah.
Oh, well, I was just like, in general.
Yeah, in general, it was set in New Bedford.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
he used the public events to take pictures of people. Like, my daughters are in one scene in the graphic novel.
Yeah.
So he actually embedded people who came here during the AHA Night events and made them a part of the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jamie gets turned, I'm sorry, Linda gets turned.
Yeah.
You're like the main person in the prologue.
What can I say?
You're very famous. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great example, Ron. Like, people think it has to be whaling
Right,
related.
again, there's those questions that just float about, or those assumptions that
Yeah,
I wanna just wipe out of my head.
right, yeah,
Just like,
yeah.
oh, it's about women, you know.
Right.
that kind of thing,
Yeah, and I think something to remember about us as an organization is sometimes it is hard to communicate out what you want other people to realize, right? So these calls for submission are open to interpretation. Like, we're trying to put the most clear information out there for everyone. But like, if your story is just set in New Bedford, or your muses are people of New Bedford, like, that's an okay connection. Like, it just has to be connected in some way, and we're not gonna dictate what that way is.
So the other point of it is speaking to or for gender, race, residency, whatever, because the question would pop up, well, who the heck are they to speak to that? They're not that. So I just want to be clear about that as well. Because, people are really kind of edgy about everything, so.
Yeah, well, and as they should be, I mean, that's why it was a good question to bring up, like, oh, I'm a dude, can I apply for this particular
Right.
residency? And so, yeah, I like this sort of, I can see things churning in your brain, like actually thinking about whether or not this is a good fit for you. And and I don't want to discourage men from applying to this year's residency, but thinking about who has the agency, who historically has told stories of women, has it been women? No. Sorry, world. Let's jump back into this. Who found something that they really liked in this? Don't look at mine.
I like that fourth paragraph a lot. Just describing that whole outline of the public engagement is really good.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yes. My little thing over here was like, when applying to like when you come up with your idea of your public engagement, Google that idea too, and just see who else has done something similar to what you're putting out there, and just to like log it away. Like, how is mine going to be different? Also, has there been problems? Have there been problems in other institutions? For example, there's going to be a dress-up trunk for both children and adults to wear garments and corsets and dresses, and great, this sounds great. The MFA Boston did something with dress-up stuff that turned it out to be like kind of racist. I mean, it was a big swing and a miss for an engagement. So, you don't have to necessarily write, like, I'm not going to do what the MFA did. But it's good knowledge to have that, because if and when you come in for an interview, or if you're talking to someone here, you can say, oh, yeah, I know that the MFA did it this way, and this is why I'm not going to do it, because of the fallout they had. So it's just like, and also if you're like, okay, yes, I've never done public engagement before, here's my rad idea, Google it and see how many times it's being done too, okay?
Yeah. Another piece about the public engagement is on the call, I list a couple of examples of how to engage with people. Workshops, Q&As, those are examples. If you just regurgitate what I've already written in my call, and you tell me that you're gonna offer workshops and Q&A and children's craft days, like literally just plagiarized what I gave you as an idea, that's not a well thought out idea. That's like my idea, right? And we got applications like that. So I'm not trying to poke fun at anyone, but I'm just saying, like, your idea about how to engage people should be your idea. It shouldn't be just taking what I've given as a suggestion. I'm just trying to give examples for folks to understand what's happened in the past and been successful.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, especially with public engagement, there's some risk involved, right? So is it dangerous for people of different sizes to try corsets? Is that like something the author should have written? Because I know when I've done similar proposals, sometimes the feedback I get back is like, we were afraid of what you're going to suggest because you mentioned there are pruners or like knives or something.
Sure.
What are you going to do about having children around or something like
Give the children the knives. Let them go nuts.
that? 'Cause I
Yeah,
don't-
I mean, I would probably
Don't
also
forget
be
the mask.
intimidated by a proposal that wanted to give knives to children.
So an issue I've had with that is like, I want
mean-
to make the person receiving the proposal feel secure, but I also don't want to talk down to you people.
Sure.
So like, I
Yeah.
know there are some risks involved, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure when do I address that risk.
That's a great question. I'm just trying to think of what I would do. Like, let's say I was gonna do a workshop with knives, and I know that children are gonna be there. I think if I was writing that proposal, I would definitely talk about like why knives are important. But also like if I had any sort of like certification, like safety training certification, just throw that in there. So then at least we know that you are thinking about that.
Yeah.
As opposed to being the knife guy, you know?
Also, too, I think there's a lot of merit in just saying what you just said.
Yeah.
Which is like, I want to do this thing, unsure about how it will be realized in your space. So this specific component is up for discussion, right? So maybe just articulate that in a way that says like, here's the suite of things I want to do. There's this one thing that might sound kind of sketchy to y'all. But this piece is like something I want to talk further. Like if my submission is selected, I'd like to work with the park to discuss how this would be most appropriate for the space.
Great, that's really helpful.
Yeah, and then also with the corsets thing, that's a really good point. Like, there's also sort of the possible, there's all these possible horrible things that could go wrong, right? Like, dudes dressing up like women and thinking that it's funny. Like, that's not cool. Like, and so I wonder if in this application, if it's just like, yes, I want to work with the park on this. I'm curious about this. Like, I'm curious about how the population would respond to corsets. Maybe no one will want to touch it, but I just want to put it out there with some expertise behind it.
Yeah, great question though.
I just wanted to point out this lovely, more active historical imagination. I just want to say, you guys, you're applying to the panels on all the things that you're going to be applying to as artists, just like panels of nerds, you know? So, like, for me, this sentence, I was like, that's a pretty good sentence. Like, they're not using art speak. I mean, historical imagination, I'm like, what is that? Like, I dreamed the dream. So this was an interesting thing. And then I would say that right about here, this is where it gets a little long for me. It's like, I got about this far and I was just like, no.
I mean, I literally whacked out that first paragraph.
Yeah.
I mean, I like went at it like,
Good. Yeah.
Would you like to be on our next panel?
I'm trained as an editor, so
Oh,
it's hard for
awesome.
me not to do it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I just graduated from Harvard with a master's degree, so
Oh,
I'm definitely in Harvard too. We should
there
talk
you
about
go.
that.
So we're like in
Yeah.
mode.
you need red. Yeah.
But yeah, this would look like a great big hemorrhaging thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that whole first paragraph,
Gone.
it's just so vague.
Sure.
And then if you're gonna lead into that second paragraph, you better tell me how did you get into this very arcane and very complicated form of art, costume design and adding in the historical factor to it. So it's like, where's the hook?
I agree.
Sure.
Where's the hook? And it better happen right up front.
Yeah, it shouldn't be happening on paragraph 4.
I don't know how many of these things I'm gonna have to read.
Yeah.
You can always get to the context later, but it's important, like you're saying, to get to the hook right away, so that then people are interested in the context.
Yeah.
And the
After
hook
they've
is
read
in the
about that
last
book.
paragraph, step
It
into
And
the
then tying
shoes.
it into the
Exactly.
last paragraph.
Yeah.
The two are very separate.
Right. Anything else that sticks out?
The word
The word-
costume is always
The
being.
Your
museum.
collections.
Damn.
I know.
This is why. Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
have a do you guys have a collection? Great.
And not just once, but a
Of
couple.
ukuleles,
but-
maybe.
Yeah.
But she also mentions, or he or she also mentions it in that second, it says New Bedford Whaling Museum Historical Park. I mean, they got
Yeah.
the two all.
We put that in there on purpose.
You
guys are so close together.
Thank you for catching it. Yeah, sometimes people just make up names that like don't even exist. Like it's not the Whaling Museum, it's not us. We're not sure what actual organization it is.
I want to confess, was it on your podcast? That for the life of me, I could not remember the correct thing. You know, the Bedford Whaling Historical Park. Oh
yeah.
my God, it was awful because it is a
called
mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
Oh,
Yeah.
listen, we all struggle.
Oh, okay.
Like,
All right, so
it's
I
okay.
just want to absolve myself.
Oh, sometimes I answer the phone and say it wrong. Like our phones here.
Yeah.
So that's okay. But when you're preparing a document,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
put a
do
little
those.
bit more than a couple of seconds of thought into it when you're creating the document. Because when you're speaking, of course, yeah, it's fumbly, it's an awkward title, right? But when you're writing, just make sure you're referring back to the organization's website of which you're applying, and make sure you get it right.
I'll take those show notes before you start going.
Yeah, and also that actually just reminded me, like, if I'm applying to the park for a residency program, I'm gonna go on that park's website. I'm gonna read their mission. I'm going to read about their people. Basically, here's my permission for you to do some stalking. Like, do it, you know? Because it's really gonna help you out, knowing, just having that context. I was gonna say something else, but it's gone.
Well, and that really shows too. Like, I think maybe some folks don't realize, but it shows whether or not you've read about what we do and who we are. By the way you articulate what you're going to do here. That translates almost immediately. Like, oh, this person has never even clicked on our link to our website from the application. Like, that's always very clear to us. And another thing too is, like, because we want this application to be open and accessible, like, grammatical errors are not necessarily, like, I'm not gonna ding up that writing necessarily, because that person may not have English as their first language.
Right.
But if I can understand the nugget of the idea through the errors, that person may get selected. So it doesn't have to be like a dissertation. It doesn't have to be quote unquote perfect.
Right.
It just has to be able to communicate your idea. Yeah, and also too, like, if there's a really, really strong proposal and the letter of interest communicates something, but there are still a lot of questions, we will pause our process. I will reach out to that person. If we are really compelled to select a person, but we have a lot of questions, we will stop the process, reach out to that person, ask more questions about their application, and then if that compels us to select them, then they will get selected, right? So yeah, I just want to articulate that, like, just do a little bit of work. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, don't feel like you have to have the best writing skills in the world to be able to get a residency. And also, one more thing is, like, send it to somebody who's not in the art world. Send your application to somebody who's not in the art world and ask them if it makes sense. Because the people who are here in this national park don't necessarily have an art background. So when I'm selling it to someone else, I may understand your letter of interest with all its beautiful art speak. But when I have to communicate that out to other people who are like historians, landscape architects, whatever, they're gonna read this and go like, what the heck does this mean? Like, make sure it makes sense to non-art people.
Want to segue to artist statements?
Yes.
Okay. This is, so there's a couple of resources that I'm just sort of working off of. This book, first and foremost, like, the art world, right? Like, it's tough. But like questions about the resume and stuff like that, formatting. I get a lot of formatting questions from people, like how am I supposed to lay out my resume? How am I supposed to lay out these things? I strongly suggest this book. It's a nice tool. If you lay out your stuff in the way that this book suggests, it does not mean that you will get all of the shows and all the residencies that you apply to. This is just like a nice, clean layout form. And in it, there's a whole section about artist statements. Do you guys have the piece of paper that have the 2 artist statements on the front and back? Yeah. Great. We're gonna do the same activity basically. Actually start with artist statement number 1. Read through it, and I want you to pick out the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, and then we'll talk about it. 5 minutes. All right, the good. Any good?
Not much.
Let's start with the fun part. The ugly.
All of it?
Someone read me your favorite sentence in that one.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, what starts out as a vision soon becomes corrupted into a manifesto of distress, leaving only a sense of decadence and the inevitability of the Renaissance.
So pretty much Morrissey lyrics. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like when I read these, I was like, this is cool. This makes no sense. Yeah. No, I know. Like I'm a studio artist too, and I know the difficulty of like being in your studio, making your beautiful sculptures, and then having to step out of that headspace, and someone's like my dad or whatever is like, "What's this?" And I'm just like, "It's my insides on the outside, Dad. Why don't you understand me?" But there is a way to get from your sculpture to people being able to sink their teeth into what you're thinking about, what you're doing. So your artist statement is a chance for you to like teach people about what you do in your studio. Okay? It should like never be more than like 300 words. And this is like and there's a couple different kinds of artist statements, right? There's the dissertation that you might write when you get your MFA. Good for you. I have one of those. It just sits in a library somewhere, and I hope to God that no one ever reads it. There's like the 300-word like little paragraph that just is like a little nugget. And we need those paragraphs as curators and as interpreters, because we just want to take that paragraph and copy and paste it onto our website, because that's one less thing for us to do. So, and also it's just a quick little taste of who you are. And then there's the like 1 or 2 sentence like elevator pitch. Like if my dad comes up to me and was like, "MFA, you got that? Cool, what's that about?" I just want to say to him in like 4 words, you know, weird puppet stuff is mine. So,
Do you want the sample that you worked on here?
oh yeah, thanks. So, yeah. So the words like multiculturalism, or diversity, those words are, they're used so often that they lost meaning. Like there's no meaning. If you're gonna say you're working with, working with diverse audiences, what kind of diverse? Just say what you want to say.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so overheated.
yeah,
It's like you can just see them melting.
Sure.
You know?
yeah, like multidisciplinary. That's a word we see a lot. Transdisciplinary. Yeah,
Juxtaposition.
Mixed media?
mixed media. Yeah,
What kind of media are you mixing?
yeah.
All of them.
Tell me.
There's the word synergy. Personally, just makes me want to just quit everything. And then
I'm writing
also,
all these words down.
yeah, don't use synergy. Also, just in this first sentence, it says, "My work explores the relationship between multiculturalism and vegetarian ethics." So I don't know what that means, right?
What is that?
Let's just pretend like this is your artist statement and you really are interested in vegetarian ethics. You need to, in a couple words, explain what the heck that is. Not
Eat is
everyone-
murder.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to make it more
And
correct.
eat is murder. And so, you know, like, I know that this might sound like a little like rudimentary, but I can't tell you how many artist statements I've read where someone has spent an entire page telling me about their childhood and I don't know what they make. So, speaking of which, the next sentence starts, ever since I was a child, I've been fascinated by endless blah, blah, blah. That's cool. I appreciate where you're coming from as a human because humans are important. But just say you're fascinated by a thing. You know, like, if
Not
there,
everything has to be rooted in your childhood to be legitimate.
yeah. Now, for example, if you're making work about a specific moment in your childhood, talk about the moment. If you're making artwork where you use the idea of play or playfulness, like, and you say, like, similar to the way children play, they explore through playing, that is 1,000 times more interesting than saying, like, my influence are the way children play with things. Like, really just, like,
Nice.
over-explain everything and then edit, all right? So, when you're writing your artist statement, there's a couple of things that I like to do. The first thing is brainstorming, right? You want to get all of that childhood, vegetarian ethics, whatever it is, out on a piece of paper. And I have this dorky little worksheet that we printed for you. I'm just going to steal yours. Where is the dorky worksheet? Yes. Okay. Because, you know, you want to brainstorm, you want to create an outline as if you were writing a paper, and then you want to put that stuff together and then edit it down to a paragraph. So for me, the scariest parts of that is the brainstorming and then the outline. I feel like as I get to that outline, I can edit stuff down. So there is this wonderful place in Providence, Rhode Island called New Urban Arts. I don't know if you guys know about it. Michelle Obama loves it. But they came up with this like artist statement worksheet. The audience, like, they serve youth. Like, so when you read this and if you're like, oh my God, I feel like they're talking to me like I'm a baby, it's because it was made for youth, but I find this to be incredibly helpful. And so what I do, and again, excuse me if I'm like mansplaining to anyone, but I put this all in a Microsoft Word document. I type in all of my answers, as weird as they are. And then I edit out the things that do not matter. And then I take away the questions in Microsoft Word and shove it together in a paragraph. And it's like, oh my gosh, I almost have an artist statement. This saves my ass every time I get confused about what it is I actually do with my life. And I just think that this is a really, really interesting resource to kind of fall back on. And then, does that make sense? Yeah, so please feel free to take that home and work on that. Yes, are you
I
Linda
would
now?
also, I'm not Linda,
Yeah.
but this is a comment, which is a very Linda thing to do.
Yeah.
But this is also why it's so important to share things out with non-artist folks, especially the artist statement, because if it makes sense to someone who's never interacted with the art world, you've got it. Like, you are hitting that mark. So just keep that in mind. Show it to non-art people, please.
So now, when you're writing your artist statement, it's different than a bio. Some applications will ask you for a bio. The bio is like, who are you, where have you shown? Where have you been published? When you're writing for like art stuff. If you are a musician, what bands have you been in, or who have you sang with, where have you performed? I just like, and again, that is a paragraph that administrators will take and just, you know, put on their website. Or if you're about to give a talk and I read off a little bio, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Copy and paste is like the key word there. It's like, think about it that way. We just want to copy and paste it.
Yeah. I mean,
make our lives easy.
Yeah. The artist statement is different. Okay, it's about what are you thinking about when you're in your studio. Who are you as an artist? what materials do you use and why? You know, like, art people, we like stuff. Tell us about the stuff you use to make your art. I might regret saying this, but when you're brainstorming, write down how it makes you feel. Feelings are important. And I mean, what if your entire art practice is about feelings? That's a thing. So if you have this piece of paper, these outlines, and then you have artist statement number 2, or if you're really brave and you brought your own artist statement today and you want to share it with
Did
I was
anyone
just
read
gonna
theirs?
ask you to shred mine, because my wife does it all the time, and it's like a huge battle. Do you wanna read it?
Well, what I want you guys to do is take artist statement number 2 and take the outline questions and pick through this looking for anything, any of the questions on here. Do you know who the artist is when you read artist statement number 2? Do you know what they make? Imagine you weren't a creative person, would you understand anything that they said? So artist statement number 2, give it 5 minutes. Oh, and if you want to share your own artist statement, you know, you and your group can work on that too, but that's very brave. I was gonna draw on this, but I decided not to. Can anybody tell me who the artist is in artist statement number 2?
Not a clue.
Artist statement generator.
That's
know
who
what
it
you
is.
do.
The internet made this.
I believe his name is Archie Bollocks.
Yeah.
You can kind of see that they're interested in like high art and philosophy.
Yeah. Okay, so if they're interested in high art and philosophy, cool, me too. What kinds? You know, like,
Can we?
yeah, just like, and why? Do they say why? Cool, just in general interested in philosophy. Cool. Any other things that we noticed about this artist statement?
Like, what do they use? What do they do? Like,
Yeah,
It doesn't
About
answer
the
any of
medium
the
of
questions.
it.
Yeah, it doesn't answer any of the questions.
okay, so I'm driving home the point, right? Artist statements. Make sense, just as long as they make sense.
Please, dear God.
Yeah, I read a lot of these, clearly I have some opinions,
Yeah.
but, yeah, like,
This is what we do when we read artist statements.
yeah, this is what I do when I write my own artist statements
The
too.
reaction you get when you read the last sentence.
Yeah, like, so.
The epitaph for the darkness of our existence.
I feel like all these could be read by
So
Werner
happy.
Herzog and be
Yeah.
hugely enhanced by him reading.
They
I mean,
answered 2 of the
yeah.
questions, and that's all they did.
There's also 2 kinds of artist statements. There's the artist statement for a specific body of work,
Sure.
and then there's the artist statement that says who you are.
Right.
And they're very
Thank you. Yeah.
different kind of purposes,
And how do we know when?
which
What
one
you were
you're
asking
looking
for.
for.
And
You
how's
know,
that
like,
different from a bio?
Love it. The 3 of you, gold stars. So, you know, I mean, actually, I'm gonna let you answer that for the residency. Which one? Are you looking for the direct project statement, perhaps? Or-
Yeah, so I think the direct project statement is really addressed in your letter of interest.
So let me rephrase that, sorry. So you're talking about 2 different kinds of artist statements. A statement about a particular body of work, your work about butterflies. And then an artist statement that's a general, my name is Linda, sometimes I make artwork about butterflies, but also other things.
Oh, I have a
Right.
question.
So the artist statement that we're looking for is the one that talks about you as an artist, not a specific body of work. So your letter of intent or letter of interest should talk about so it may include elements of that specific artist statement that talks about a body of work, and what you plan to realize while you're in the residency. But the main artist statement that I'm looking for is that copy and paste. So it's not about a specific project, it's more about you as an artist and how I can communicate out what you do.
And that if you have that in general one about a body of work, those are typically used like if you have an exhibition and you made this, 17 paintings about butterflies. A curator's gonna ask you for both. Like, tell me specifically about this body of work, but also your general sort of jam as an artist. And the difference between a bio and the general artist statement is that the bio is saying stuff that you've actually done in the past as far as like fancy, like your shows and your publications. That wouldn't be in your general artist statement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
The other question I have is, when your name is on the application, do you put your name in the artist statement?
Also, to
Just
piggyback
curious.
on that question, do you write your artist statement in first person or third person? Thoughts, feelings? I have opinions.
What are your opinions?
Third person.
First person,
My thought is third. Like bio, put it in third. Because remember, we want that copy paste. Like, Linda McLinda showed here, here, and here. Your artist statement, I would even write a general artist statement in third person. I don't know. I don't know if there's any hard rules on that.
because you are the artist, you are speaking about your art,
Sure.
not other person, it's your.
But if you want to copy and paste it, you don't want to have to go through and change all the
Pronouns,
she's,
yeah.
the eyes to she's.
She is in third person, I understand.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I'm trying to think of what I actually do in my, I think I do third person all the time. Maybe I just like that detached away from, it might be a little bit easier to write in third person. Yeah.
Yeah, for our purposes, I would say third person because of that copy paste element. So I want to be able to understand what you mean and communicate that out to other people and essentially copy and paste your artist statement to put it on our website, to put it on flyers and all of that. So if it's littered with I statements, it's not going to make any sense, and then I have to do a bunch of editing.
And that's not like a overall
Or is
rule
that
for
gonna
other artist
deter you
residencies.
from accepting it?
No.
But if you use I statements,
Yeah, you're out.
you're out. Because I know you.
Rhonda.
You know
it's
better,
you.
Rhonda.
So that's a good
Yeah,
question.
there should be 0 errors from anyone in this room.
Oh, I wish I hadn't come
No
in.
pressure, no
Oh,
pressure.
no.
That's a good question, and that, I mean, like,
Yeah,
it's
a good
kind of, that is like the question. So,
And you know, also too, a lot of this is really subjective, right? I'm just speaking about my preferences at this institution for this organization. You ask another ranger who administers an artist in residence program in another national park, and they may say completely opposite things as what I'm saying right now. They may want I statements. So it really is subjective. And if you feel like the I statements are what you resonate with more, then communicate in the way that you're most comfortable with. Don't force something if you think it may inhibit how you're trying to communicate.
sure. Segue, let's talk about the perks
The perks.
of being an artist in resident here.
Yeah, so obviously the financial perks are what most artists want to hear about. Cha-ching, you get paid to make your money while you're, or make your money and make your art while you're here. So it's $2,500 for 3 months of studio residency. And that is just literally $2,500 to you. All of your materials and any costs for the residency comes out of our budget. So your materials do not come out of that $2,500. That is $2,500 in your pocket. All of the materials are provided by the park. That is huge. That's huge. You don't hear about a lot of residencies doing that. Another really amazing benefit about residencies in the National Park Service is that if national park residencies, just in general, are something that you want to pursue, getting a residency at one park is going to open many opportunities for you to get residencies at other national parks. And that's true of residencies, that's true of employment, that's true of a lot of things in the National Park Service. But if I can look at your resume, let's say I work at Rocky Mountain National Park, and we have a residency there where you can go and hole up in a cabin for 2 weeks high in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado and talk to no one.
Dream.
Totally different than what the residency is here, right? But let's say I'm the artist in residence coordinator there, and I see this application from Rhonda. I see she's done a residency at New Bedford Whaling National Historical Park. The first thing
It was at
as-
the museum.
Well, for this hypothetical story, that doesn't work. So let's say she has this experience on her resume. I can guarantee you I'm gonna get a call from that person at Rocky Mountain National Park. Or wait, in this story, I am the person.
Unclear.
I'm gonna call. You're not even following my story.
That's okay.
Okay, so let's say I'm the Artist in Residence coordinator at another national park. I receive an application that says that someone has served as an Artist in Residence elsewhere. I'm gonna call that park and say, how did this go, right? And also, I'm gonna know that you've dealt with the bureaucracy of working with the federal government, because that's a reality of this. There's paperwork involved. In order for you to get paid, you gotta fill out paperwork. If you don't wanna fill out paperwork, you probably shouldn't work with us. So that communicates to me automatically that you know what it's like to work with a federal agency. That's huge. That's huge. Also, there are only about 18,000 employees in the National Park Service. That sounds like a really big number, but of those 18,000, there are maybe 24 folks who work with Artist in Residence programs. We all know each other. I have mentored other people who want to start residencies in their parks because I've started residencies from the ground up. I inherited this program here, which is amazing, but I have started residencies at other national parks. So we're communicating, we're sharing artists. I've actually referred artists that were in my residency at other national parks to people on the other side of the country. So a great example of that is a couple that were photographers. They came, I was working at Congaree National Park in South Carolina. They were my very first artists in residence there when I built the program, and they are amazing people. And basically I told them, like, this is an experiment, so let's try it. They were awesome. We were able to work collaboratively. They gave me a lot of really great feedback, and they've done 3 national park residencies since. That basically just opened the door for them. So that's a huge thing. Like, if that's something you want to pursue, is specifically national park residencies, this is only going to aid you in that.
Perk number 2. I haven't put it on the calendar yet, but in a couple of years, the Art Museum is going to do an alumni show of the Artist in Residence here. It's going to be a big group show. So they're and also, like, Lindsay and I are buds, you know, and this kind of goes like around that same idea. Like, I'm always surprised when I talk to artists who, like, don't think that I talk to other curators in New England. There's not that many of us. We do talk to each other, and you can be the Chuck Close of New Bedford, but if you are difficult to work with, like, that's just the way that goes, you know. So another perk is that there is an exhibition later on. So someone like Fitz, who started New Bedford, welcome to New Bedford? New Bedford here. Like, Fitz might not show that at the museum in a couple of years, but he's welcome to come and show with us. We do lots of cross-programming together. I've suggested artists to come and apply to this because the museum does not pay as well as these guys do. Yeah.
Also, if I can share this example, there was a person who wanted to show in the museum, and you thought actually it was maybe a better fit for a residency versus a show, and I'm now in contact with that person talking about what a residency or a fellowship might look like. So that's the other thing, is a fellowship component. You should have a sheet in front of you that has a residency versus fellowship. It's pretty straightforward, but for the sake of time, you know, we're coming up right at 6 o'clock. We said we would end at 6, so I want to be mindful of that. If you have questions about the difference between a fellowship and a residency, please shoot me an email. Happy to go into more depth if you have questions. But that sheet pretty well outlines the main differences between the two.
Before we conclude, we love data here at Practice Best Practice. And as we said before, if you have an idea of, like, man, I am a working artist in the city, I need to document my work, how can, like, give us suggestions of how we can help you. PBP, we meet and we talk about what artists actually need, and we try to do the things for that. So if you've got a good idea, throw it on here. If you're interested in being a panelist as a working artist, you can throw that on here too. We want your wisdom as well. Yeah.
This residence is only for citizens or can be international person?
It's international.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we close?
Yeah, what's the name of that book that you showed us?
Ooh, it's called Artwork, and I'm just gonna hand it to you. There's a new updated one where the cover's a neon yellow now. That's a little bit older.
Yeah. Also, if you didn't write your email down on the email list at the front table, please do so before you leave, because we will send out a resources list that includes that book title and extra links.
The book.
Great.
Okay, any other thoughts? Yeah.
So the proposal now is for residencies and fellowships?
Just residencies.
Just the residencies?
Yeah, so the residencies are all online. The fellowships, we haven't formalized a way to put that online yet because it's a little bit different than the residency. So right now, most of our fellowships are like, actually, we have a future fellow in the room. I'm working with Rhonda right now about a project that we'll realize actually this like late spring, early summer. And that's just because Rhonda showed up and was like, how can I get involved? And I was like, well, we have this amazing thing called a fellowship, so let's talk about that. So we're working on formalizing that, but it's really kind of like a totally different thing. So yeah.
More word of mouth.
Yeah,
Connection.
and also it's you know, it can be like one day of work where you just maybe want to like shoot a video in the park or do one thing. Or it may be a 3-month thing. So it's really quite nebulous, yeah, on what that looks like. So Dylan Podesta, a former intern here who's a CVPA grad, she painted the windows downstairs, and you know, we paid her for 2 days of work, and that was a fellowship. Also, like the work Fitz did to realize the prologue of the graphic novel, not the initial idea, but kind of the second tier of work, that was through the fellowship program.
So pick up Lindsay's card,
Yeah.
email her and say, fellowship, me? Question mark?
Yes.
Last thing I'll say, the New Bedford Art Museum /Artworks is an open call museum, which means you can apply to have shows at the museum. So you can find out about that online, or you can email me and I can talk to you more about that. That goes for performers as well. You can just call me and be like, I want to do a thing, and we can talk about it, okay?
Yeah, and if you really liked what happened here today, please share with all of your friends. Anyone you
all have
know.
friends.
Also, too, thank you all for being here. We weren't sure how many people were gonna show up. This is awesome to have almost 20 people in the room. So thank you all for being here. Also, too, one more thing is if this time is really odd, I would love to hear about other times to host these workshops. So if you know of other people who couldn't make it on a Sunday evening, what's a good alternate time for us to host this type of workshop that may reach more people?
Make the address really clear, because
Yeah,
a couple of
thank you.
us were at co-creative because we put the
That's
time
where
in
it happened.
co-creative.
Oh, okay.
And I went to the
Thank you.
museum.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was with her at the museum. That's the reason.
Your fellowship is revoked.
Linda thanks all of you.
I take that back.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, and you can just leave your surveys on the table by the, or actually leave your surveys right here.
Grandma came to hang out with the kids, so.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's really a time to think.
Yeah.